film critic. So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic, and I'm your host, Julia.
And I'm Barry, the film critic who is married to Julia.
So we just decided to go back in time to 1946 and watch Hitchcock's Notorious.
And I apologize for anyone tuning in who thought we were talking about the 2009 film Notorious, about the notorious B.I.G. and his relationship with Little Kim. Sorry, this is a different film.
Totally different film.
Couldn't be more different, in fact.
So this was your pick, and can you tell me a little bit why you picked this?
This is a Hitchcock film where the premise always haunted me so much. The first time I saw it, I think I was probably in high school. And, there are love stories where two people can't be together for reasons that are contrived, or they can't be together because of the kind of people they are. This is a situation where it's a spy thriller and two people can't be together for a reason that's so agonizing. It's always haunted me. There are Hitchcock movies where the premise is great, but the emotion isn't there. And Hitchcock's never made a bad film. I don't care what anybody says. People like Topaz wasn't that great and Family Plot isn't that great. Hitchcock's never made a bad film.
Those are two Hitchcock movies I've literally never heard of.
That's okay. Well, maybe we'll get to that later on. But my point is that he's never made a bad film. But he's made films where I think the premise and his visual approach, his mastery of cinema, in some cases are so much better than the characters. This is not the case. I think this is one of these situations where the hook of this movie, which we'll get into, the story hook is so good. But I've always felt this movie. This is a movie where I'm always really emotionally drawn into the story. And, it helps, of course, that our main characters are played by Cary Grant and, Ingrid Bergman, who are so good. And I just the emotional pull of this movie is always I've always go back to it. I really love this movie. This is one of those, because I love The Birds and I love Psycho and some of his films around that time. This is a couple decades before that, and I think this is, I don't know, it's not an underrated film, but I feel like people don't ever talk about it enough, and I do love this film. It is one of my absolute favorite Hitchcock films.
Okay, well, you had me at Cary Grant, so I was like, let's do this. The funny thing is, we started watching it, and it wasn't until 3/4 of the way through I thought, hey, I think I've seen this movie.
Well, I wondered too if maybe you had thought that you'd seen it because the premise has been stolen for other movies. There's a lot of examples I can give. The ones that come to mind quickly: Michael Douglas did a movie with Melanie Griffith, not great. It's called Shining Through. And then the plot of Mission Impossible 2 is this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember Cruise, Ethan Hunt is in love with Tandy Newton, and Tandy Newton has to go and be with Doug Ray Scott. I think he was the prince of ever after.
Who can remember any of the
You don't remember the plot
plots
to Mission Impossible 2?
No.
Come on. The one John Woo directed.
No. I don't even... Those movies are so convoluted, I don't ever remember the plots.
I love all the Mission Impossible movies, and I do like the second one. I'm the one person who really adored the second movie. But the thing is, the plot is completely stolen outright from Notorious. It's same idea. It's a love triangle, and it's basically two spies in love with each other, and the female spies in a situation where, I'll do this for you, but I love you, and I'm going to have to betray you sexually in order for this mission to go well. It's a similar idea.
Let's back up, because she's not even a trained spy.
Right.
So
right. Well, start at the beginning.
Yeah, start at the beginning.
And the movie, by the way, it begins with, it begins close up of a camera. I love that. It begins with this really tight close up of a camera, and then it kind of, Hitchcock pulls back and takes us into this world. There's all these perspective shots in this movie that are really putting us into the mind, the place, the vantage point of these characters. And so we meet Alicia, played by Ingrid Bergman, the wonderful, gorgeous, incredible Ingrid Bergman. It's established that her father is going to prison for a long time, for
20 years.
20 years for being a bit of a war criminal. And she's having a get-together, a party at her house, and it's very jovial. She's completely inebriated, and it's one of these parties that's kind of winding down. She has a guest at the party, and initially we don't see who it is. We just see his back, and he's silent and observant. The weight of this individual's presence is incredible because he hasn't said anything. We don't know who he is. And then the camera swoops around and we see, oh my God, it's one of the most handsome people in the history of cinema. It's Cary freaking Grant, looking incredible, with Ingrid Bergman, who's beautiful. So the movie is blinding us with the optics very early on. And I love him in this movie. I love it because he doesn't really, there's a lot of banter, but his best moments are just these reaction shots. Same with Bergman too. They're both really just being very internal because, of course, not only because this movie came out in 1946, but there's a lot these characters are not saying. There's a lot of specific things that aren't being said. So there's a lot of, you're looking to their eyes or looking to the reactions to tell us exactly what's going on.
Okay, we'll go back to the plot because why is he there?
He's there because he wants to see what's up with her because her father has been put away. And I think, there's a couple reasons he's there, but one of which I think is just to see where she's at with the whole thing. Is she a part of his?
Yeah, is she in on it?
Yeah, is she in on it? And and he realizes no, she's actually an innocent, and she's actually I don't know if I'd say she's a patriot, but she's definitely someone who is faithful, loyal to her country and loyal to her cause, which is not the cause of that her father represents. So Cary Grant is an American agent, and he reports back to his boss saying, she's good, and if how can we use her? How can we assign her? What's the deal? And her superior comes up with the idea of her basically going to Rio de Janeiro, where she would have to reconnect with an old flame. A man by the name of Sebastian, played by Claude Rains. And in order to do this convincingly, she has to basically reconnect with him romantically because Sebastian used to be infatuated with her.
Yeah, I think it was one-sided. I don't think she was infatuated with him.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's established that, in order for this to be convincing, you would have to basically be his girlfriend, to put it mildly. And this is a problem, of course, and it's great because when this pitch is given to Grant's character, Devlin, great character name, we could see that Grant is not happy about this because even though there's banter and it's very much like in the 1930s, 40s style of romantic comedy where they're butting heads, but clearly they're falling in love with each other. Clearly, there's so much chemistry going on between Devlin and Alicia Bergman and Grant. But the thing is, he's trying to keep his cool because, he's an American spy. He's Cary freaking Grant. He's cool.
Yeah, he's
reserved.
He has a job he has to do.
Right.
Yeah, and he can't put his feelings above the job.
Right. But at the same time, he's basically been told that he has to ask this woman who he's in love with to, be a very convincing
spy.
Beau. Yeah, to spy on this guy Sebastian.
You remember a man named Sebastian?
Alex Sebastian?
Yes.
One of my father's friends, yes.
He had quite a crush on you.
I wasn't very responsive.
Well, he's here, the head of a large German business concern.
His family always had money.
He's part of the combine that built up the German war machine in hopes to keep on going.
Something big?
It has all the earmarks of being something big. We have to contact him.
Go on, let's have all of it.
We're meeting him tomorrow. The rest is up to you. You've got to work on him and land him.
Mata Hari. She makes love for the papers.
There are no papers. You land him. Find out what's going on inside his house, what the group around him is up to, and report to us.
I suppose you knew about this pretty little job of mine all the time.
No. I only just found out about it.
Did you say anything? I mean that maybe I wasn't the girl for such shenanigans.
I figured that was up to you. If you'd care to back out.
I suppose you told them Alicia Huberman will have this Sebastian eating out of her hand in a couple of weeks. She's good at that, always was.
I didn't say anything.
Not a word for that little lovesick lady you left an hour ago.
I told you that's the assignment.
Well, now, don't get sore there. I'm only fishing for a little bird call from my dream man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of confusing the way that they fall in love because they don't have very many scenes together before he tells her the job. And she agrees to fly to Rio with him before she even knows what she has to do. I think she knows that this Alex Sebastian character is there, but she doesn't know what she's going to have to do or how this is all going to play out. So it's very strange setup for a woman whose dad just went to prison, and then she finds out on the plane ride over that her dad committed suicide in prison. And now she's going to go do this job for her country. And it's just like she meets Devlin and her life just completely turns upside down.
The premise kind of creeps up on us, but initially it feels like a Hitchcockian romance in the sense that even though these characters are, the circumstances why they're together are very extreme, but the banter is very, it's for one thing, it's beautifully written. I love the dialogue. And one of the reasons I've always returned to this movie and remember this movie is the kiss scene between the two of them. There's a scene where they're in a hotel room and there's a phone call, and basically the scene is simply of two people in a, on a balcony hanging out waiting for a phone call to happen, and instead it becomes two people who just can't keep their hands off each other. And it goes on for a while, almost to a point where it's almost embarrassing how long it goes on.
You're like, are they going to just go to the bedroom at some point? What's going to happen?
It's pretty fantastic because there's an eroticism to it. There's an intimacy to it. There's a sweetness to it. It's awkward. And they just won't stop kissing each other. And even when the phone rings and he's on the phone listening to his orders, he still won't stop kissing her. I've always remembered that scene. I think it's funny. For all the things in this movie I remember, that's probably the thing I remember the most. It's like I've never seen... I mean, look, in addition to the sensual quality of it, it's establishing these two, they absolutely adore each other.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not just that yes, it's happening very quickly, but we need to feel the depth of this relationship. We need to feel the weight of it, even though it's happening quite quickly, and you could say it's under very contrived circumstances. This is a love story on some level, and we need to
believe it.
We need to feel that, and I think this scene is like, yes, okay, I get it. I mean, look at these two.
Yeah. So he goes and talks to his work colleagues, and they tell him the plan, and you can tell on the look on his face. He's like, "Oh no, I don't want to ask her to do this. I don't want to ask her to go, pretend to be in love with some guy who totally has had a thing for her." And his colleagues are like, "Oh, do you have a problem with that?" And he's like, No, why would I have a problem with that? Even though he clearly does.
Yeah, it's a great contrast because there's a lot of ways to look at this from a social perspective or historical perspective, but the Grant character is really doing a wonderfully... It's contemporary, his attitude towards it, because his superiors, who I think are just wonderful, they're very drawl, they're very English, they're their equivalent of Q from not Q, M from James Bond. They're very much like, oh, it's for the good of the country. Let's go, let her do her thing, do what a woman would do. And Grant is horrified, and he's really trying to keep a poker face, but he can't. And it makes it even worse when he has to tell her the extent of it, like whatever you need to do. The movie is, the characters never word it. At one point, she uses the term play date, or she makes the insinuation that intimacy has occurred. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but basically, the movie is never. The character's never saying it, and the film is never outright saying, that this is this is a deeply compromised situation. This is a woman who has to give herself sexually to someone she's not in love with in order for the good of her country. It's heartbreaking.
To take down the Nazis.
To take down the Nazis, right? So it's again, it's like
it's very patriotic.
Well, it's horrible. It's a horrible situation that she's in, even if it is for the good of the country. And again, like that's always been the thing about this movie that's always dug into me, just how horrible this situation is for these two to be in. This it's like what do you do? How much are you willing to compromise yourself?
Okay, but when he tells her the job, she says she wants him to tell her not to do it.
Right.
And he won't.
Right.
And he wants her to say, oh, I'm not going to do it because I'm in love with you, but she won't. So they're both very stubborn. And
it's an interesting thing too, because there's a great scene where she's cooking this really hideous looking chicken for the two of them, and it doesn't go well, but she does set up like this dinner for them, and the camera even lingers on this perfect table setting, and you get the sense like this is what they want, and they've either never had before, or this is ultimately what their goal is for the two of them, but they can't have it. But like we see like this is the ideal thing that they want. They want domesticity. They want to be together. They want to be there on their honeymoon, but no, they're about to be torn apart for this mission.
Yeah. So she decides to do it, and he of course is like, I support you, even though you can tell they don't really want to do it, but she's going to, and he's her contact, so she's going to be reporting to him everything that she finds.
This would be very easy if these two did not love each other, but the fact that they're in love with each other just makes everything just so agonizing.
Yeah. And then they have a setup where she meets Alex Sebastian, and it doesn't take long for him to just completely fall in love with her. And they have a dinner where he takes her out, and he's very forward with her,
Yeah, he's played by Claude Rains, who is spectacular in this. I love Rains in this. There is an elegance to this character. He's, on the surface, he seems like a pretty exquisite and elegant individual.
I guess he's not Cary Grant, and he looks way too old for her.
Well, that's also part of it too. He's wrong for her.
And he's shorter than her.
Yeah, and he's henpecked by his mother.
Yeah,
we'll get to the mother in just a second. But yeah, anyway, like Rains is great in this. I agree with you. I'm not saying that I don't want him to end up with Bergman, but his character is great. I've always felt very drawn to this character. I just love the way he plays him. He's a man of mystery in so many ways, and the character could have been just a plot device or a one-note villain, and he's very complex. And I think Rains really nails it.
Yeah, he does. Well, because you can tell that he totally digs her.
Yeah,
and he is like, man, how did I get so lucky that 4 years later we're seeing each other again in Rio? What are the odds?
Yeah, they run into each other on horseback. Yeah.
So let's see. Do they get married right away? Is that
it? Happens quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, before we even get into more of the plot, and by the way, I mean, I think, it goes without saying, that there's there's lots of spoilers here. So, sorry to spoil a movie from 1946. But at the same time, I mean, I think one thing I want to emphasize too, like whether you've seen this film or not, it's not really about the story. It's about how the story is told. Look at how Hitchcock is constantly putting us into the perspective of the characters. One of the greatest shots in this movie, what we kind of jumped over, there's a scene where Bergman is in bed, and she's looking at Grant as he's walking towards her in the room. And the camera revolves. I mean, she's basically turning over in bed, but the camera revolves so we see him the way she does. So he kind of goes upside down in the frame for a moment, and it's wonderful. There are characters who enter into the frame, and we feel the weight of their space. The character, and we'll talk about it a little more extensively, because there's a lot to say about Sebastian's mother. But the character has this introductory shot that has always terrified me. Even watching it now, it made me very uncomfortable. The mother is a very core character in this film. We see her walking down the stairs, and she walks right towards us. It's all one unbroken shot. It's so invasive. She gets right in our space, and then there's a cut to the two of them, of Bergman and the mother, and we see how close she is to her. And it always makes me so uncomfortable because it's like, God, like we felt it.
The mom is creepy.
The mom is creepy, but Hitchcock is also, Hitchcock and his cinematographer, obviously, they're doing everything they can to make us feel like we are there. We feel the weight of these characters. Obviously, a lot of Hitchcock's greatest films do this, but in this movie, I mean, you either feel the heat of Grant and Bergman, or you feel, the cold, icy unease of being in the presence of the Nazis. I feel like you really feel what it's like to be in the company of these people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I agree.
Good. And 1 point for me. So the mother, let me pull it up really quick because this is fascinating. So you made a really wonderful observation. You said she looks like they're about the same age. Yeah, well, the actress who played Claude Rains' mother, Madame Sebastian, this is Leopoldine Constantine. She is the late Austrian actress. This was her last film.
Oh, wow.
And what at a very long, illustrious career, apparently one of the few projects she had done in English. I mean, what a great role to hang her hat up on. She's spectacular in this. The character is terrifying.
I just want to talk to you a little bit. What is Hitchcock's problem with mothers? Like, why are they all so creepy? Psycho, The Birds,
Marnie.
There's Notorious. I mean, all the moms are psycho.
I don't know about all the moms, but there's
too many.
There's a lot of very unhinged mothers in Hitchcock's
it's like
movies.
Mother-son relationships are just so
unnatural.
Dysfunctional.
Yeah. There's this weird, obviously there's this really strange sexual connotation to it, a control. The sense where the boy is still a little boy and the mother is still this domineering, controlling mother. Yeah, it's constant.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously it's very Freudian, very.
Okay, but why? Do you think? Did he ever talk about that? Did he ever talk about his own mom?
I read Donald Spato's book about Hitchcock such a long time ago. I'm struggling to remember, honestly. Yeah. He had a good relationship with his wife.
Wow.
So I don't know. I'm not sure. But again, it's not every single Hitchcock film.
Okay, but it's enough that I've seen.
Okay, well,
to make me question and go, okay.
I would say that the skewered family dynamic is a more consistent theme in all of this stuff. Like if you think about Rebecca.
Okay, well, crazy, weird family dynamics.
Yeah. Skewered family. That's I've always said every film has to have a conflict, and what's more intimate than you can't trust the perspective of a mother. You can't trust the matriarchal instruction and nurturing of a mother.
Yeah, but it's also kind of these men who are not completely
right. They're
grown up.
Yeah, they're arrested in their development. Absolutely. Yeah. Even because when it's established that Claude Rains' character Sebastian, we see just how much he depends on his mother, how it's a very codependent relationship, and he's seemingly incapable of having a strength. She's really the backbone of the two of them. And there's a great shot, I don't want to get too far ahead of it, but there's a great shot where we see them in silhouette and then their shadow kind of combines into one.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, obviously, they're like, they're one and the same. They're a dual unit. One cannot exist without the other, rather. But, even thinking about Rod Taylor's character in The Birds, where his mother's played by the late, great, magnificent Jessica Tandy, he's probably the strongest, most masculine male figure in a Hitchcock film to have a domineering mother. But even so, she's still the one calling the shot. She's still in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that because we watched The Birds not that long ago.
Yeah.
And man, I was really not like
Yeah,
her.
you were not digging Jessica Tandy.
No.
Like,
I
man,
was
you were not having Miss Daisy in that one at all.
Oh my gosh. But who's the main girl in that movie?
Tippy
yeah,
Hedren.
so Tippy, she just really puts her in her place, and I was like, yes, you go, girl, because this mother is unhinged.
So yeah, a lot of unhinged mothers in Hitchcock's work.
Yes.
So it comes up in conversation because Alicia, played by Bergman, has to check in with Devlin, played by Grant, telling her what the progress of this mission. She's spying on this man who she eventually marries, and it happens very quickly. And it seemingly is it's one of these things where he's testing her, and she makes it clear that, as she says, I've added another play date. And it's
but tell everyone this is at a horse race.
Horse race.
Yeah, and Alec is sitting somewhere else, and she meets Devlin, and she's giving him information from a dinner that she went to at the house, right? She's telling him this character, oh, this thing happened, something weird happened with wine, you know. She's trying to give him some information, and then Alec comes down, and Devlin says, oh, you know, your horse won, and yeah, I gotta go.
He's playing the dumb ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. And she thinks that Alec was watching the race, but he's like, no, I was watching you, and he's in love with you. And so now we establish that, oh, Alec is really keeping tabs on her. He's really jealous and insecure, I think.
Yeah, of course. And again, like, the thing that the movie won't talk about and the characters won't talk about, because it's a censorship issue, and it's also so painful for them, obviously, is that she, you know, is to create this illusion she has to sleep with this guy. It has to be intimate. It has to be believable. And, you know, it's tearing her and Cary Grant's character apart. It's harrowing for them to be doing this mission well.
Okay, so she keeps talking to Devlin and saying, you know, you hate me, you think poorly of me. And is that just kind of the way they talked in the 40s? Or do you think why does she keep saying that?
Oh, why she says that to Devlin?
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean,
she keeps bringing it up multiple times. I mean, because he won't tell her he loves her. Yeah, and then she just kind of talks bad about herself. I don't really know why.
I mean, I think it's a character choice.
Well, it's in the script.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's. I don't mean to imply that. I mean, there's, I don't know. There's different reasons for that. I think. I mean, she so wants him to just say, I love you. And we see how long it takes him to just be able to say that to her. He didn't
say I love you during that long kissing scene before she got her mission, right?
Right.
Okay.
I don't believe so. No, I mean, if I recall, I mean, he basically says he says it very late. And obviously it's such a, you know, this is a movie about where words have such power. And I think Devlin is aware of how strong those words are, and how that could really change the motivation, could change her focus, change her commitment to it. Even him, I feel, you know.
Yeah, I mean, is he just pushing her away so that she'll focus more on the mission?
Yeah, and there's that spectacular shot that I love where she first, you know, basically commits to this mission, and there's a shot of Grant sitting alone at a diner table. He's sitting to the left, and there's an empty chair on the right. And then the scene bleeds to her sitting on the right with an empty chair on the left, implicating, you know, they're both feeling the absence of each other. You know, the weight of that person who should be there is not there. And the hope of that person reappearing is really what they're living for. They're living for those stupid meetings at the park bench. They're living for those little, you know, encounters where they have to share information. But again, it's you know, it's like every word they share is like coded, because it's not only what they can't say because they're in character, but it's also what they can't say because they have to keep this illusion alive. They both realize like they're walking this tightrope where they want to be a couple and they have to fight that urge completely in order for this thing to happen.
Mm-hmm. So can we talk about the party scene?
Yeah.
Because I really...
Yeah, it's the big
Pivotal
second act. Yeah, it's where things really kick into gear. Yeah, the party scene, which begins with this incredible shot above, seemingly at the top of the stairs, looking down, and the camera sort of swoops down, and we see that in her grasp, Alicia is holding behind her back. Literally, she's clutching this key
that she stole from
Alex's keychain. This key, which will unlock this door that we've been leaning in on.
Yeah, well, because she gets keys to every other closet. She's searching the house. She's trying to find anything to tell what the CIA, I guess. Mm-hmm. And finally, he says, "You're gonna have to get a key to the wine cellar. Like you're gonna have to figure it out. Plan a party, I'll come, I'll look in there." And so she has the key. Finally, Devlin shows up, and of course, Alec is all over them, just, like, oh, there he is, there they are, And
understandable, because Cary Grant can't keep his paws off his wife. Totally understandable. It's maybe the one thing I'm like, I get this character completely.
That's funny. So she says, "Meet me in the basement," and they go into the wine cellar, and we don't really know what they're looking for, but
and they don't even know. They're just trying to find something, anything.
Yeah, something. And he accidentally breaks a bottle of wine, and turns out there's not wine inside of that bottle, but it's sand, like black sand. Mm-hmm. So they have to clean that up and make it look like nothing happened, and then as they leave, Alec comes down.
Yeah, and Devlin, Cary Grant's great improvisation is like, "Kiss me."
Yeah.
Like, of course you would, Cary Grant.
Well, I'm like, how does this make this better? But I think because they're not in the wine cellar anymore, he doesn't want him to go into the wine cellar.
Make it emotional, make it distract him with his jealousy, which is a great ploy. And you don't make enough of a point of it, but he does tell her, like, push me away, and you don't see it happen, so it almost feels like, Hitchcock should have shown
her struggle
a little more, because clearly
she was not struggling. She was like, the moment I've been waiting for.
Right. So it is understandable when Claude Rains as Alec appears, and he says, like, you were kissing him and you didn't seem like you were unhappy. Yeah.
Well, so then he realizes he doesn't have his key on his key ring.
Yeah. Right? Moments later, he realizes he's missing the key, and it's kind of the light bulb that goes off. So he goes to bed, and they sleep in twin beds. So I mean, I don't know what that's about, but 40s. It's the 1940s.
All right. So there's obviously not that many play dates happening, but he wakes up early in the morning and then sees that the key is back on the ring, and obviously she has put it back on. And
she's, by the way, for all the things that she is doing for this mission, I mean, terrible. I mean, she's sleeping way too much for someone who's supposed to be on alert. It's supposed to be a spy.
She's not a trained spy, though. That's the whole thing. They're asking a regular woman to do spy work with no training.
She's doing great in terms of espionage. It's just the fact that she sleeps this deeply is a problem.
She's just drooling and snoring.
She's just getting up and, like, just walking around, and she's, completely oblivious to what he discovers. I love this portion of the film because it's dialogue free.
Well, then, so he goes back down. He finally has his key back, so he goes back down to
into the basement, into the wine cellar,
and sees that, okay, something has been tampered with. He finds the broken wine bottle, and
the detail I love. He sees that, he looks at the labels and realizes, oh, like, this is the years are out of order.
Yeah,
there's something missing, and then he discovers the broken glass, the bit of sand.
Yeah,
it's wonderful because, again, like, there's no dialogue. We're getting the weight of the moment from Rains. Again, like, there's so many scenes in this movie where for all the very complex things that are laid out in the plot, it's really about character reaction and the weight of words. There's a moment we kind of skipped over, and I think when we talk about the final scene, we'll go back to it. But there's a scene I love where the Nazis are having a meeting, and they're talking to this guy. It's established that he's a doctor in the group, and he's going, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to freak out about the wine glass. Oh, that is okay. Don't worry. We'll give you a ride home.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's okay. I can walk. Oh, no. We'll give you a ride home. Don't worry. He's like, I'm sorry about the wine. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll give you a ride home. It'll be fine.
That guy
We're never going to see this man
is
again.
6 feet under after that.
It's great.
I'm afraid, gentlemen, that something must be done about Emil.
I don't know. It was an understandable slip. Man was tired.
No. It's a very dangerous slip.
It is not the first one. There have been several other lapses before. There'll be more, if you permit him.
That's bad. It's very bad.
I think, gentlemen, you can leave it to me to find some way. When you drive up to Petropolis, the road winds quite a bit. It is very high. There are some very awkward turns. I'm sure I will not have any difficulty in getting Emil to give me a lift in his car. It's quite a trick to jump clear. I'll just have to be careful, that is all. Turned my ankle the last time.
Madame says, will you join the others or will you take your coffee in here?
Oh, I think we'll take coffee in here, Emil.
I'm very sorry, gentlemen, to make such an exhibition.
Nonsense. We all have nerves. You have been overworking. Don't you think so, Rustler? You need a rest. Your health is very important to us.
Oh, that's very considerate. I am very tired. So now I think perhaps if you make my pardon to the ladies, Alex, for my leaving so early, then I...
Maybe, Emil, it would be better if I came with you. I think perhaps if you try to drive yourself all the way up to Petropolis, it might be too much for you. I shall drive you.
No. And that would be too much for you all that way. That's too much to ask.
Nonsense. I'd love to go. Come on, Emil. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, Alex.
I hope you feel better in the morning, Emil.
Thank you. And I'm very sorry to make a scene before strangers. Very sorry.
And again, like it's one of the many instances where these characters are saying one thing, but there's a completely different meaning and context to what's actually going on, and we get it because we see how terrified this guy is, and how these guys, they're like not even looking at him like, oh, it's okay, Frederick, we'll see you later.
They're like, we'll see you tomorrow.
It's
Wink,
great.
wink, wink.
It's great. Yeah.
Okay, so does Alec then talk to his mom?
Yeah, he goes straight to his mother in her bedroom while she's
wakes
sleeping.
her up.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is...
And she's like, what are you doing up so early? She wasn't even awake.
Mommy, my wife is a spy.
Yeah,
it's great.
He says, I'm married to a spy. And
he's like a whiny little boy. It's great. It's like, wow, all the elegance, all the prestige of this guy just completely goes away.
They're gonna kill me because if one of my guys did this, I would kill him. So he's like, I'm a goner.
Like Claude Rains stops short of like sucking on his thumb, like, Mommy, what are we gonna do? But that's how it feels, which is it's so great. And
the mom is just like,
she just springs to action.
She like lights a cigarette, like, I will figure this out.
It's great. Like, oh man, she just like came to life.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
she's like, well,
lights a cigarette in bed.
Yeah, she's like, I was right all along. Like, this is your punishment for not listening to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you never should have married her.
Yeah.
So Mommy comes up with a plan.
Yeah, and because of, again, the way Hitchcock places the camera, we learn that, there's something wrong with the tea. There's something wrong with the tea or the coffee that Bergman's character is sipping. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's basically getting poisoned, and she goes her last meeting with Devlin, and she finds out he's going to be transferred to Spain. Yeah. And then she goes to meet him on the park bench, and she looks just so sick.
Yeah, and she claims that she's hungover.
Right. But you can tell he doesn't quite buy that, But he lets her, he doesn't tell her he's transferring or that it was his idea to leave. And I don't know why, but he doesn't see her for 5 more days. And he waits on the bench every day, right?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about this movie because there's not a lot of films that portray spying in this light. And I love it because spying, whether we're talking about Jason Bourne or James Bond, it's like there's always cool stuff happening. There's gadgets, there's adventures, there's exotic women. Like one of my other favorite
real spies are just always
they're just sitting around waiting. Yeah, like the Russia House, one of my other favorite movie about spying with Sean Connery. I mean, it's just a bunch of old white guys with with headphones on listening to stuff, waiting for something juicy to happen. And in this case, I mean, yeah, it's literally Cary Grant on a park bench all day waiting for
all day for 5 days.
And at one point we see him like pacing around the bench like, oh yeah, this is exotic, glamorous stuff. I mean, just to see like Cary Grant, this beautiful specimen of a human being, like having to pace around a park bench.
You just think he's so amazing.
When George Clooney, not Rosemary Clooney, when George Clooney became very popular, everybody's like, he's a new Cary Grant. No, there's only one Cary Grant. And I remember like people said like, like Clooney and Julia Roberts are like the equivalent of Cary Grant and Bergman. I'm like, no. I like them both. I do. Clooney especially. But no, for me, Grant is like, I mean, if I were to say like who's like a handsome movie star, I would say, well, Cary Grant. That's the first person I would think of.
Yeah. All right.
Denzel will be number 2.
Okay, so what's her name? Alicia. Oh my gosh. We're recording this way too late. So she's sitting with the family and not feeling well, and the doctor's there, and they're basically pretending to
They're
help
play
her.
acting, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel, dear?
Yeah,
take a
that's so
nap.
sad. Oh, do you want to take a trip? You want to go on a boat?
Would you like some more tea?
You want to go on a boat ride? Maybe you need some fresh air, you know. And she's drinking this tea and she just doesn't feel good. And then the doctor, his teacup is right next to her teacup, and he accidentally picks up hers, and they just...
The Nazis.
They're like, oh!
Flip. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Claude Rains like no, that's it.
Yeah, and the mom is just like, oh, wakes up.
Yeah.
And
Alicia immediately gets what's up.
She's like, the look on her face is like, okay, this is why I feel so terrible.
Yeah.
They're poisoning me.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, it's, all those... And we feel the dread, too. I mean, because obviously we get what the visual language of the movie is telling us what's going on. I mean, there's so many ominous shots of teacups. It's like, we get it. We know what's up. But the way it's shot, it's a lot of close-ups. And, I mean, the mother is shooting the most ominous, sinister, awful look at her. Claude Rains can't even bring himself to look at her. And... It just, the horror of the situation kicks in. She's got nobody. She's by herself. She's vulnerable.
She hasn't seen Devlin in days.
She's in such terrible danger, and she could barely keep herself together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she essentially almost literally crawls out of there and passes out in the.
Well, then the really terrifying thing is they put her in bed and they say, take the phone out of the room because we don't want her to be disturbed. And it's like, okay, you have no escape. You can't call anybody. You can't go anywhere. And
in the 2021 remake would be like, take her Wi-Fi off, Disable her TikTok account.
Oh my, don't make sure she can't go live on any accounts. Oh my gosh. Okay, so then what? Devlin shows up? Yeah,
it's pretty great because as I noted to you, like again, like it says so much about this film's depiction of spying being this really droll activity that these middle-aged white guys are just doing very casually. Because Cary Grant goes to meet his superior, who's a wonderful character actor and doing a great bit. Apparently it's a hotel room. It can't be is it his house?
No, he's in a hotel room.
Yeah, it's like his hotel room, and his boss is just casual, like sitting on his bed, eating cheese off a plate.
Yeah, basically with like a charcuterie board in
It's
bed.
great. It's great. Like this is what what our tax dollars are paying for.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, yeah, sure, go check on her, whatever. Just keep.
Don't mess up the mission.
Yeah, we want to wrap this up in a couple days. It's very it's very business as usual. But of course for Grant's character Devlin, I mean this is everything. This is all he's thinking about. Yeah. So he shows up at the house. And again, it's a great cover. He's going to show up. Hey, I'm the jilted lover. I just want to see how she's doing.
No, he said I'm a family friend.
Family. Well, he's not going to say I'm a jilted lover. I'm just saying, like, his cover still works because at this point there's still plausibility to his character.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and Sebastian is in a really in deep, really important Nazi meeting. So he can't quite leave the room.
Nobody's available. So
Grant
Devlin sneaks upstairs and finds her.
Maybe a little too conveniently, but it's very suspenseful. I mean, this whole portion of the film is,
you don't know.
It's so it's the suspense is just tightening.
I mean, how tall is Cary Grant? Because he's taken those stairs 2 at a time. I mean, it's a huge staircase.
Yeah,
and he's just like whipping up those stairs like nobody. Like, no problem.
Well, it's one of those, like, Gone with the Wind, Orson Welles staircases where one wrong step and you're just going to go tumbling down.
Yeah. So he finds her and goes into the room. And I mean, of course, she's like, I can't believe you're here. And the sound on this DVD, it was really hard to hear what their conversation was.
Yeah.
And we didn't have our subtitles, so you know how I am about that. But he basically professes his love for her.
Yeah, he does say "I love you." Like
finally
he picks the perfect time to really to finally they're finally seeing each other, and they're finally, and it's just like
it's a lot of whispering.
It's a lot of whispering, but they're being very transparent in this moment, and he does the thing that perhaps is not the most responsible, but the one that makes the most sense emotionally, which he's going to get her the hell out of there. And it's great. He's going to rescue her.
Well, because
even though
he finally realizes she's sick and she tells him, I've been poisoned.
Yeah, but again, like, there has to be an aspect of this protocol, like, maybe like we keep her there a day, maybe I get like some backup. No, I mean, he's just going to get her out of there and just like blow this thing wide open. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's the emotional decision. It's not really what they teach you in spy school,
Okay, well, we've never been to spy school, so.
Well, I have. But why I was so good at that? You didn't even know that all this time.
That's true.
You don't even know if I'm kidding right now. I mean, this podcast could be like the one bit of proof. Like, he actually did admit to that, but it was on a podcast. I thought he was kidding. We're talking about this Hitchcock movie. I thought Barry was just like, oh, Barry, your jokes. But yeah. So I went to spy school, and you leave them behind.
This.
Yeah, you don't do this. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but I'm just kidding. Wink, wink. So
he takes her down the stairs, and then of course everyone comes out.
Everybody comes out right at this moment, like, oh, what's going on? Yeah. So the evil mother, who is. And to the credit of the film and the credit of the actress, she doesn't go like totally Cruella de Vil. If anything, she becomes more motherly. Like, oh, are you okay, dear? Like, oh, we'll take you back.
Well,
take you to the hospital.
At this point, she can still cover because it's still only the 4 of them that know,
right?
Not all of the Nazis,
right? And so, the suspense from this scene not only comes through the fact that Cary Grant has to carry Bergman down these stairs, which is impossible.
Well, no, he's like, you have to stand up and you have to walk. He's not going to carry her.
Yeah, well, but she's not carrying her in a Clark Gable, Clark Gable, Vivian Leigh way. No, I mean carrying her in the sense that she's he has his arm, supporting her. Yeah, yes, okay. Forgive me. Yeah, so that's happening, and then meanwhile, Claude Rains' Nazi party is getting like, where is he? We're supposed to be talking about Nazi stuff. So they come out of the boardroom like, oh, there you are. Come back inside, and they want to know what's going on. And the suspense is, if he tells them, he's in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Because they don't know that.
Because they're like, where is she going?
Yeah,
like, oh, the hospital. And then Devlin puts her in the car and then locks him out. And he's like, no, you have to take me with you. Otherwise, they're not going to believe it. And they drive off, leaving him. And the Nazis are like, come inside. And then they're like, how did they call the hospital if she doesn't have a phone in her room? And that's like, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And it's strange that the movie ends on this note. And you know, this is another one of these films where, on the one hand, I'd say I wouldn't touch a frame of it, but I would have enjoyed a scene mirroring the earlier scene of like, oh no, don't worry, we don't mind. Hey, would you like to take a drive? Guys, I'm really sorry. Okay, I didn't know I meant. Oh no, that's okay, Sebastian. Don't worry, we don't care. Hey, we're gonna go to a little moonlight drive. You want to come with us out to the field where no one is at? I would have loved.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
But it has this very sharp, jarringly abrupt ending, and it's fine.
Well, I would want to see. Okay, that would have been funny if they had done that. But it would have been also
Just a callback to that earlier bit. Yeah.
It would have been nice to have Alicia and Devlin on a boat somewhere, going somewhere else together.
Yeah, the
like,
more
we know she's fine.
The more Hollywood ending, but no, I think I'm okay with it because in those moments, the moment where he finally finds her and then he's taken her. I mean, they're saying everything they need to say. They're being as real as they've ever been at this point. I feel like they're going to be okay, and it's okay because the lying, the BS is over. Like it's no longer about keeping your cover. It's no longer about like doing the protocol. It's like these are two people who are in love, and they're going to get out of this situation, even if it means jeopardizing everything. And they essentially do. But the wonderful thing about it is, I mean, really, if you think about it, I mean, they walk away. They've got the proof that it turns out the sand was actually uranium. That these
she got all the information.
Yeah, the Nazi
needed.
jerks have been storing uranium in these discarded wine bottles. So they have all the information.
And she knows where it's being mined from.
And if the feds do bust open this little Nazi bat trap, they're gonna find that like not only are there a bunch of creepy Nazis rolling around, but the one guy who was the ringleader suspiciously has died. So
I think
maybe his mother too.
Oh, she turned on him, and she's gonna.
Oh, do you think maybe when they're punishing him, she's like, "Would you guys all like some tea? Would you like some Lipton tea?" Oh, I know.
With a little arsenic in it.
Oh, I know you like a little cinnamon. Oh, you like this one. It's very strong.
Yeah, no, she totally turned on everybody so she could escape.
So the feds break in, and it's just the mom sitting there with all these dead Nazis everywhere. Oh, hello! Would you strong boys like some tea?
Yeah, she just keeps killing everyone with tea.
I think Hitchcock would have liked that actually. I think Hitchcock would have loved that ending.
Yeah. So Sebastian gets buried alive or thrown off a cliff.
Who knows? Who knows what these creepers are doing?
And then the mom kills everybody with poison tea.
Yeah.
And then Devlin and Alicia fly off they finally get to go to Spain, but they go together.
And it's interesting because Hitchcock did a film with Cary Grant and Grace Kelly in color, and it's called To Catch a Thief. I've never liked it. It's heavy on the romance, light on the thriller stuff. Not a fan of that movie. It has the famous fireworks scene, which I admit is visually beautiful, and Cary Grant and Grace Kelly are visually beautiful, but I've never liked the film because it is so lush with romanticism, and I don't like that. If anything, I don't, I love that The Birds becomes a horror film. I love that it stops being
quite the twist.
Yeah, I love that it starts as a romantic comedy, then abruptly becomes this surreal horror film. Psycho is similar because Psycho opens up where the two lovers are in bed, and it becomes about a woman driving cross country to connect with her boyfriend, and then things go sour. Yeah, I don't like the mushy stuff with Hitchcock.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm okay.
It's more fun when there's an actual plot and a mystery, and the romance is equal to or just a little bit less of important.
Because I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, it feels like it's an obvious decision, and maybe a more commercially sound decision for the final shot to be of Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman on a plane together.
The final shot could be the crazy mom with the tea. That's fine.
You really want to go with that? I love that.
But we have to see them flying off together or on a boat somewhere. They've done their duty. They did their patriotic duty, and now it's time for them to live their lives.
Hitchcock is a master of the macabre. It is one. I do love how cynical and punishing the ending of this movie is, and it's not punishing for us; it's punishing for the bad guys, which is great. It's a total.
It's a little punishing for us because it just ends just like that.
But he gets her out of there. He rescues her.
Yeah, I know. But I would have liked a little.
It's the end of Claude Rains. No matter what, is the end of Claude Rains' character.
No, that's great. But I want to see our hero and heroine just like have their final moment where she's not looking like she's gonna die.
They probably went back to the hotel room and kissed for 3.5 minutes straight and one unbroken tracking shot. I'm sure they end up just fine. I'm sure Cary Grant's like, I'll suck the poison out of your lips. Don't you worry.
Oh my gosh.
A line that would not have gotten past the censors even in
No.
1946.
He would have whispered it. There was a lot of whispering.
Yes.
I really
But
had to turn up the volume.
The whispering because they have secrets.
Yes, lots of secrets.
Lots of secrets.
So wait, you give this movie 4 stars?
Yeah, I think it's perfect. I really do. I love this film. Every time I see it, I'm just, Hitchcock puts me under a spell, and this is one of those movies where I fall very deeply under his spell. I don't think he's ever made a bad movie. I took a class on Hitchcock. I read the Spotto book on Hitchcock. It's called The Dark Side of Genius. Some people consider it definitive. I don't. There's different perspectives on him. I have on my bookshelf the book that Janet Leigh wrote about her time with Hitchcock, and it's fascinating because the infamous story about Hitchcock was that he was an invasive, even an abusive presence to Tippi Hedren when she did The Birds. And it's interesting. According to Janet Leigh, she had an experience that was nothing like that. It was brotherly. It was a collaboration. It was respectful. It was, she always felt safe and protected by Hitchcock. Unlike Tippi, who apparently, according to her and according to witnesses, he was really over the line and inappropriate with her. Yeah, I think Spotto's book, it's like a lot of that obviously has merit because there's witnesses and there's different recollections. But Spotto's book I thought was so overly negative. And there were some pranks that Hitchcock performed, and some of that, and I'm not an apologist for Alfred Hitchcock. I certainly do agree with reports that he was inappropriate and did inappropriate things. But putting saran wrap over a toilet bowl as a prank, I don't consider that to be the height of, Anyway, I thought Spotto really tried to make him like an evil guy, like a guy who had a really evil, truly dark, sinister Norman Bates.
So was he
side.
trying to say he was like a Harvey Weinstein type of person?
Not exactly, but more, but in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's similar to not quite as much, but like, do you remember the Anthony Hopkins film Hitchcock that came out where Hopkins played him and Helen Mirren played his wife? Like the angle on that film, which is complete total fiction, was that Hitchcock was, it's almost like the spirit, if not literally the spirit of Ed Gein was like haunting him, which is so ridiculous.
So weird.
Yeah. And what we know about Hitchcock, the other things that we know about Hitchcock was that he was playful, he was impish, he was defined by his sense of humor. He had this macabre sense of humor. So again, like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm apologizing for Hitchcock, anything that he did. I found Spotto's book to be so overtly negative, and I thought at times it didn't seem like it really gelled with who he seemed to be naturally, not just in front of the camera,
because Janet Leigh had such a different take.
Yeah, again, like, and I'm not saying that Janet Leigh's perspective, makes Tippi Hedren's perspective, that it disregards it. I'm not saying that at all. And obviously, there are things that Hitchcock has said, treating his actors like cattle, or saying like, if you look at The Birds, everything that Hedren did, every look of her eye, every tiny gesture, all of that was me. There's such a controlling aspect there, even if it wasn't as bad as she says it is. But I certainly believe her, of course.
I personally think it's okay to like his movies, even if we don't really know the type of person that he was 100%.
Yeah.
There's no way to know that.
Yeah. And there's obviously themes of obsession, themes of stalker behavior, themes of, Yeah, themes is not
He
the right word.
probably had a weird mom, and that relationship like kind of jacked him up a little bit, and there you go. That explains all of it.
What about his relationship with his wife, though?
I mean,
Which, by all accounts, was healthy, complex. Went on for a long time.
I'm sure his wife was lovely, and they probably had a great relationship. But clearly, from the movies that he directed, there had to have been something weird in his past.
Yeah, and and obviously the themes that he was obsessed with.
Yeah.
Point to that. And also something I always thought was interesting about him, my father and I used to talk about this a lot because my dad's a big Hitchcock fan and he got me into Hitchcock films. My father and I, we often have conversations about Hitchcock was always trying to push the envelope. He was always trying to have taboo aspects or visuals in his movies. He was always trying to do stuff that was forbidden or things that he knew he was going to have to speak to a censor. And what's interesting was Hitchcock was trying to get this psychological sexual thriller called Kaleidoscope made. It's one of those unmade films, but we actually have footage of it, of basically these insert shots that he'd done. And they point to an erotic thriller. And with his last couple movies, Frenzy being a big one, I mean, he was a guy who I'm sure would have loved not only having an R rating, but even an NC-17 rating. You get the sense like Hitchcock would have either loved Eyes Wide Shut or would have made a film like Eyes Wide Shut. He's somebody who would have really wanted to take, go as far as he could with a film dealing with sex and violence, because few people were as good at portraying it with complexity and even elegance as Hitchcock was. The violence in his movies are so carefully choreographed, and the love scenes in his movies the same way. It's always like a dance with him.
Okay.
Do you like his movies? The ones you've seen?
Yeah, the ones I've seen, I've enjoyed. I don't think I've seen that many, though. I mean, how many movies did he...
So many films, because there's his British period, there's his American period. I mean, there's
decades and decades of directing, right?
Oh, it's so many. I mean, people talk about Rebecca. I mean, Rebecca was made...
I mean, I think I've seen 4 or 5 of his films.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, in taking a class on him and learning about him, I mean, he did a film called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's like, wow, he did Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean, he's made spy thrillers. He's made so many films dealing with Nazism and World War I, World War II. His work covers a lot of ground. And it's funny that we all focus on, like, the man, who knew too much, and North by Northwest. Vertigo, the one I feel is... I like Vertigo. And how can I not like Vertigo? But I feel like it's overloved. It's considered the greatest movie ever made now.
I have seen Vertigo.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think it's... I don't know. I think there's so many other films of his that deserve that kind of reverence. Another one that I adore, and it came out around the time of this movie, Notorious, is called Shadow of a Doubt. Love Shadow of a Doubt. About a young girl who suspects that her uncle may be a serial killer. It's a perfect film. But, and Strangers on a Train is another one. It's a perfect film. But, again, like, I feel like most of Hitchcock's films, even the so-called flawed ones, the ones that don't work, he's never made a bad film. And they're always interesting for some reason. He's like any of those great filmmakers where, whether it's the filmmaking itself or the premise or the strength of performances, there's always greatness, if not brilliance, in a Hitchcock film. You're not wasting your time watch. I mean, he did one of the first films about a serial killer. He made the film The Lodger about Jack the Ripper. Every Hitchcock film has something.
Okay, if you were to tell somebody who's never seen a Hitchcock film, like your top 5.
Top 5.
What would they be?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I guess one would be Psycho, because I have to. It's one of my favorite films. The Birds would be 2, because I adore The Birds. But Shadow of a Doubt, 3. Notorious, 4. And the one that I've always found to be so hideously underrated, because I think it's actually charming and exciting and suspenseful, his final film, Family Plot. I've always liked it.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are my 5.
All right. So Notorious gets 4 stars from the Film Critic. And
Why stop there? I'll give it 5.
Give it 5. What? Yeah, you really like this movie.
You? What about you?
Yeah.
2.5 stars.
You know what? I don't like giving star ratings because it's not really my thing, but I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't remember I had seen it before. Well, years and years ago, must have been. But I enjoyed it a second time, and I did not really remember the story, so it made it just as enjoyable for me. But yeah, I guess I'll say 4 stars. Because last time I said 3.5 because you said 4, and then I ended up saying 4, so.
You're talking about the way you hideously underrated E.T. the Extraterrestrial?
I am talking about that.
Why in the world would you give that movie 3.5 stars? There's nothing wrong with that movie.
I know.
Nothing.
I know. There's nothing wrong, and there's nothing wrong with Notorious that I can really say, except that I would have liked more out of the ending.
Okay.
So if I were to give it less, like 3.5 stars, it would be because I think the ending could have given us just a little bit of a taste of their life after this point.
And I'll be honest with you, Jules, and because it's just the two of us talking. Thank God we're not recording this. But like the star ratings don't mean anything to me either. Really, it's a requirement. And I mean, there was a period where I was writing for one website where I was doing. I mean, when I wrote for our school paper, I was using grades like an A or an A- or a B+ or whatever. And then there was another site where it was like on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
Ridiculous, because then like 7.5 or an 8.3. Like, what is this?
Too many options.
What does this even mean? Yeah. So, I mean, when I started writing for Maui Time, which I'm currently writing for, for me it was 1 to 4. But then I was told, like, do 5. Like really let us know if it's a classic movie. And I rarely ever use 5. And when I do, I always feel stupid. I'm like, was A Quiet Place really a 5-star movie? Because I gave it 5 stars. And, but then I'll be like, well, why did I give A Quiet Place like 5 stars and Inception 4 stars? Like, what am I doing? So it's this weird thing of a 5. I rarely give 5 stars. For me, it has to be like a film that I consider to be perfect, and a film that when I revisit it, I don't see anything wrong with it, and I think it's just just perfect, great cinema. But even that, I mean, it feels ridiculous to think about. It's like, is this really the top of the heap? And does that mean that 4 stars isn't good enough all of a sudden? And what about 3? 3 stars means great.
It doesn't mean that. It's just that's your job. So
I
don't think about it in terms of how many stars I would give it as just a casual moviegoer.
Yeah, but I'll also tell you though, like there's been so many times where I know that though thankfully I have readers and people read my stuff, but so many times people are like, oh, I saw you gave it 2 stars, and be like, oh, what'd you think about it? Like, well, I saw you gave it 2 stars. They don't read the reviews; they just see the star ratings I give it. I'm like, doggone it. The star rating is the last thing I worked on. I spent like forever writing this review, and like no, they look at the stars.
Read the article, people. Don't be so lazy.
Well, back in the day, like in the day of like Vincent Canby and Pauline Kael, there was no star rating. They would just write these long, meaty reviews, and you'd have to read the article to know what they thought about it. There wasn't like a headline saying like Star Wars is a big letdown. Like, no, you'd have to read the article to know what they thought.
No one has time for that anymore.
Exactly. So it's like, 2.5 stars.
Yeah.
But then it's like, what does that mean? 2.5. It's like it's more than 2, but it's less than 3. What does that mean?
I know.
Got to read the article. Always read the article.
That's the final thought for tonight, because we digress. Okay, well, that was a fun movie, and I hope everyone will go back and look at some Hitchcock films.
This is from 1946. I know it's an old one, folks. It's in black and white, but it's exquisite. It is one of Hitchcock's greatest films, and you could say that about a lot, but this one's way up there for me.
It's not a waste of time. You'll definitely enjoy it.
Yep.
All right. That does it for us. Thank you for listening to So I Married a Film Critic.
Good night, everyone.